Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we are going to see Konstantin Kisin from Trigonometry absolutely dog walk some progressives on question time. Konstantin makes some great points here, and there are a few topics that I really want to dive into. So with that, let's get into the first clip.
I think a lot of the Tories who defected to the Reform Party were always perhaps racist and wanted to push an agenda that was disgusting, frankly, but they've just found a party that they could do it with. I honestly think general consensus, particularly amongst young people, is that we've lost our humanitarianism, and the only party that is showing any semblance of that is Green at the minute, frankly, and we're so fixated on the economy, on wealth, on so many other things, but we're just neglecting the fact that we are all humans and that we are not looking after one another. And none of Labour, Tories, Reform, none of you offer that security, particularly to young people who are so exasperated, but just generally the state of the world and how we are treating each other.
So we're going to hear Konstantin's response to that in just a moment. Before we get there, I really want to dive into this topic. This young woman's entire diatribe just then was essentially saying, look around, look how much unsafety there is. Look how much uncertainty there is. And the Conservatives are evil and racist because migrants and feminists' feelings are being hurt. And the only party that cares about this is the Greens or the commies. And whilst this is a stupid thing to say, yes, and whilst young people are not turning towards the Greens and commies, well, young men definitely aren't, which we will discuss very soon, it's also indicative of a much larger problem. You see, politics is the struggle over power that determines how resources are distributed, and also how social institutions are organized and governed. Politics is not about having some sort of a government daddy that makes sure you feel safe all the time and that is in charge of making sure you don't feel offended. However, this is how these people view politics, and it is largely, in my opinion, and I think that the facts bear this out, due to the feminization of politics. This has pushed the discourse sharply leftward, turning policy into a referendum on feelings rather than outcomes.
This is a man who has called women pigs, slobs, and dogs, and someone who has said pregnancy is an inconvenience to employers, who has said women don't deserve equal pay unless they do as good a job as men. And one of the worst things he said was about a woman in a beauty contest. He loves beauty contests, supporting them and hanging around them. And he called this woman Miss Piggy. Then he called her Miss Housekeeping because she was Latina.
And it's the same mindset that moralized compliance, wear 8 masks and take the booster, or be branded a bad person. And not because of evidence, but because dissent was seen as some sort of harm. The problem here is that when politics becomes governed by risk aversion, sensitivity, and symbolic reassurance rather than trade-offs and rather than results, it produces this Kafkaesque bureaucracy, endless regulation, constant moral policing, and systems just all designed to manage feelings instead of reality.
The bill is the Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate and Extremism Bill. It's a comprehensive package of reforms which creates serious offences for hate preachers and leaders seeking to radicalise young Australians. It increases the penalties for hate crimes offences. It ensures that offenders whose crimes were motivated by extremism have that factored into their sentencing.
And this has become not only the norm, but it's become an expectation amongst these people. I mean, it is clearly an affront to this young girl's worldview that her feelings and the feelings of her constituents are not being treated as a foremost concern by her government when it comes to legislation. And this overregulation of everything, the fact that our governments have become like nagging, childless, middle-aged women hell-bent on destroying anything that we love or anything that we derive the slightest semblance of joy from because somebody somewhere is offended by it, is going to cause dramatic pushback. Like, just check out this recent story, for example. Countryside to be made less white after report finds that pubs make Muslims feel unwelcome. And this story continues.
We've got a problem. And actually it's a lot about the national parks and getting people out there and making national parks for everybody. And one of the problems is dogs. And actually, this isn't just about the fact that a lot of Muslims find dogs very difficult. It is about people who do not know how to control their dogs.
Why do Muslims find dogs difficult?
Because a lot of they don't have dogs as pets.
So because people from a foreign land who don't belong actually in your town are offended in some way by the fact that you have dogs, or by the fact that you have old pubs, beautiful pubs actually, if you've ever been to the British countryside. Because of this, you have to stop living the way you and your ancestors have been living for hundreds of years. Yeah, I don't think so. And I think that this is the reason why young people are in fact not moving towards the green commies, but instead they're moving towards vastly more conservative causes. This is definitely the case for young men anyway. This is the reason why Reform UK is now the most popular party in Britain. And it's the reason why in the 2024 European parliamentary elections, the far-right National Rally led the youth vote in France. And it's why the AfD in Germany is significantly increasing its market share amongst young voters. And it's why in Spain, 22% of 18 to 24-year-olds intend to vote for right-wing parties. And in Poland, the support for the right-wing Confederation Party amongst 18 to 29-year-old voters jumped from around 18.5% to 30%, making it the leading choice for that demographic. And I mean, what did they expect? The liberal, globalist, multicultural experiment has been an abject failure. So the next wave will be based. And the libs see this happening. They see their support going down the toilet. And this is why they're trying to jam immigration, aka huge left-wing voting blocks and demographic replacement and hate speech laws down our throats as fast as possible to secure the narrative. Anyways, with all that in mind, let's hear Konstantin's response.
You know, I'm not in the business of giving the Labour Party free advice, but I will give some. And perhaps as an immigrant myself and someone who voted Remain at the referendum, I can say this without being shouted down. The attempt to paint your political opponents as being intolerant and bigoted is something that never worked, but people tried it around the referendum. You called half the country racist, that didn't work. Then you called people racist again, that didn't work. The Reform Party, like every other party, has a mixture of people within it. It has a man in it at a senior position called Zia Youssef. Their candidate for the mayor of London is a Muslim. I mean, what are you talking about? All of this politics of division that you talk about is what you did to this country. Let me finish. This is what you did to this country. Under your government, under the Blair government, you brought more people into this country in 10 years than had come between 1066 and the Battle of Hastings and 1950. You brought more people into this country in 10 years than had come in a millennium. And then the Conservative government came in and repeated this and went further. When I came to Britain in 1996, 55,000 people a year net came to this country legally. Today, that is the number of people who come here illegally every year. That is what you've done to this country. So when you talk about the politics of polarization, you did this to this country, you created it, and you're going to reap the whirlwind of the next.
I mean, he's absolutely spot on there. And Konstantin isn't even a right-wing guy. I mean, I would be much further to the right than him on many issues. We would probably agree a lot about immigration, though. But it appears to me as though he's just noticing patterns. And he has been noticing this for years and years. And as a classically liberal sort of guy, he's trying to stand in front of the woke train as it comes barreling towards him and say, guys, pull the brakes a little bit. We're going to lose out here. But instead of listening to people like him and Jordan Peterson, for that matter, they just, boom, full speed ahead. And now guys like Konstantin are just looking at the train wreck and saying, you see, told you guys, of course there's going to be blowback for this. And now watch closely in the next part as the lib does what libs do. And instead of addressing the substance of Konstantin's argument, you'll never believe this, guys, he tries to tone police Konstantin and insinuate that he's a racist. It's almost unbelievable. It's like these people only have one factory setting. But let's have a watch.
Because, Konstantin, we have a fundamentally different view.
Clearly.
So, Rishi Sunak is no political friend of mine. He was the Conservative leader of the country, as you know. When Fraser Nelson put it to you that Rishi Sunak is absolutely English,
I said he's
what
British.
did you reply?
I said he's British.
You said he's a brown Hindu.
No, that's not what I said. I said
English?
he's British. I said he's
How
British,
is he English?
just like me. I'm not English.
Those are the words you used.
What I said
we
is,
can hear the code.
There's a difference between
a
British...
brown Hindu.
May I be allowed to say what I said?
Yourself.
There's a difference between saying you're English and you're British. I am British. My children born in this country are not English, but they're British, and that is the distinction I made.
So Rishi Sunak is not English?
No, I don't think he is. I think he's British. He's a
I respectfully disagree. If
you actually listen
to
the
Prime Minister,
if you listen to Rishi
English.
Sunak himself, he said prior to being elected as Prime Minister that he identifies as a British Indian.
I can hear the quote.
So I'm quoting him. Well, you've clearly got a different
What's his
ability.
colour got to do with it?
It's not about his colour.
You
He
said
said
brown
himself
Hindu.
yes,
You
he's a
said
British
brown
Indian.
Hindu.
Yes, he's a British Indian.
So why did you mention his colour?
I'm glad you came here with prepared sound bites, but they don't work anymore.
Why did you mention his colour?
Because I'm trying to make the point that he's a British Indian, which is what he is, just like I'm of Russian descent in this country and I'm British. It's a very simple point.
I can read the code.
So that just doesn't work anymore, and it shows how detached from reality these people are. We are so sick of the tone policing and the browbeating.
Why did you mention his colour?
And you know, once upon a time, maybe a decade ago, most people were kind of happy to be tolerant, whatever that meant. We didn't really care too much about these sorts of things. And we didn't want to gratuitously cause harm to anybody as long as they're not hurting me. But then they just take and take and take and take until eventually you sort of look around and you think, okay, well, this is going way too far. Let me look into some of these social causes. Let me look into what this feminism stuff really is. And then you look into the origin of that and you realize it's very dark and demonic. And what is this Black Lives Matter stuff? Am I really a racist? Let me look into that. Who's funding this? Oh, okay, that's really dark as well. And the list goes on and on and on to the point where eventually you just become an unapologetic based right-wing Chad. And the idea that somebody can tone police and browbeat you becomes hilarious after a little while.
I'm glad you came here with prepared sound bites, but they don't work anymore.
But anyways, enough of that and on to net zero.
Well done.
I'm going to move on, take another question. Labour's committed to net zero by 2050.
Yes, and historically there has been a bipartisan consensus, and I think that's something of which the country should be proud.
Do you support the government's efforts to reach net zero by 2050, broadly?
I mean, it's such a difficult thing to say yes or no for something like that. Probably yes, but it's not as simple as just saying net zero bad or good. It needs to be reasonable and it needs to be controlled. It can't just be something that we cut off all fossil fuels and just expect it to carry on and not affect anyone badly.
Konstantin.
Can I just first of all ask Douglas and James, what percentage of global carbon emissions is Britain responsible for?
Historically or in present
Currently.
terms? About 1%?
About 1%. 1%. So if we reduce our carbon emissions to zero and destroy our economy even more than we already have, we will reduce global carbon emissions by 1%. That's what we're talking about. Now, that's what we're talking about, right? And the promise of net zero was, well, it doesn't matter that it's 1% because Britain is a global leader. We will inspire the world if we destroy our industry and hand it over to China, who's going to make the same things that we still need but dirtier, and then we ship them back here on ships that use the dirtiest fuel imaginable. If we do that, the Chinese will be inspired to commit industrial suicide as well. The Chinese clearly are not as stupid as our leaders, so they haven't committed industrial suicide. That is what net zero has done. We have the highest industrial electricity prices in the developed world. That means we basically cannot make anything in this country anymore, and we will not be able to make anything in this country anymore until we let go of this ridiculous idea that we will inspire other people to jump off a cliff like lemmings, because we did. It doesn't work. It's not going to deliver prosperity. And James talks about we need a strong economy and we need net zero. Those two things are incompatible. You can't have both. So either you choose to make your people prosperous, or you choose to pursue. If that's not what you said, then forgive me. I thought what you said is we need both of those things, and I'm saying we can't have both of those things. We're going to have to abandon completely the idea of net zero. We can definitely continue to invest in new technology, and we should be pursuing newer, cleaner, cheaper forms of energy. But the number one priority of government policy going forward should be to deliver the cheapest possible, reliable, abundant energy that we can, so that A, our industry can thrive, and B, so that you are not paying ridiculous electricity and gas prices, because we have some of the highest energy prices for consumers in the world as well. Net zero is industrial suicide, and we've been committing it for far too long, and it has to end.
Joe.
Very quick question, if I may. If this is a global issue, why do we have the highest industrial energy prices in the world?
Because Europe's gas and oil prices are significantly higher than the United States.
But why don't they have higher gas prices? Why are we the worst at this?
Sorry?
Why do we have the highest? We in Britain have the highest.
Well,
even though we've got gas in the North Sea that we could be producing and employing your constituents.
Well, partly because we didn't build the power stations under James's government that were promised by Nick Clegg and others in terms of...
Power stations don't produce gas, they consume gas.
No, but they produce electricity and the economy's moving towards electrics, not least electric vehicles.
We're not producing our own energy.
So another thing I totally agree with Konstantin about here. And it's another way in which the Europeans are completely destroying their civilization and have been for decades now. And actually, you can add it to a very long list of ways in which the Europeans are doing that. Makes you stop and wonder sometimes if it's intentional. That net zero itself is a form of economic sabotage that is sold as some sort of a moral virtue. It deliberately drives up energy costs, it squeezes households, it cripples industries and forces manufacturing offshore to countries that don't follow the rules. Meaning, in other words, guys, emissions don't disappear from planet Earth. They just go somewhere else, to China, to India, where they don't care.
So long, gay boys!
I mean, cheap, abundant energy is the backbone of prosperity and security and social order, and when energy gets really expensive, everything gets worse. From food prices to housing to national defense. A civilization that chooses energy scarcity in the name of virtue signaling guarantees decline and weakness. While the competitors, the powerhouses, China, at the moment, that are powered by coal, and gas, and nuclear, will inevitably surge ahead. So if the West wants to remain wealthy and stable and sovereign, then it should be obsessively focused on getting cheap and reliable energy. But in case you haven't noticed, they have been doing the exact opposite. On to the last.
In reference to, you've discussed banning social media for under 16s, and you've touched on artificial intelligence, and we've seen in this month of January with XAI and Grok, and it's disgusting, frankly, undressing of women and the damage it's done in that regard. Do you think that there needs to be greater safeguards in relation to artificial intelligence? And in fact, do you think this ban should be extended to under 16s in regards to artificial intelligence?
What, not allowing under 16s to access AI? Konstantin? On both things?
I think actually, surprisingly, a lot of sense has been spoken on this so far. My wife has become, in relation to our son, a complete screen Nazi. He hasn't seen a tablet or a phone, and I don't think will for some time.
How old is your son?
My son is about to be 4, but I don't think he'll be seeing those things for ages. I'd be in favour of banning phones from schools. I think there's plenty of evidence now, as Douglas says, that this has been an experiment designed by addiction specialists that has been unleashed on vulnerable people, which is what all children are in that respect. I think the evidence is very clear that if you are a parent that takes a phone away from a child, they react as an addict would to having the drug withdrawn. That is the level of addiction it's causing. So I think it is a very serious issue. And by the way, I agree about, there's obviously terrible content that gets shown to people on all kinds of platforms, and that's an issue. But that isn't the only damage that's being done. Even when they're engaging with relatively innocuous content, the addictiveness of it, even when you're looking at normal things for 10 hours a day because you can't stop it, that's not a good thing. So absolutely, I would ban phones in schools, and I'd actually start there because of the impact that's having. And then social media. The issue with this is how do you implement it? Because then it means you have to get every single person to verify their identity, and there's privacy issues to do with that. And of course, globally, there are people who would have to verify their identity. If you're a freedom activist in Iran, you've got to submit your passport to Facebook or X, and now you get hacked and now you get exposed. There's a lot to do with the implementation of this. But the broad thrust of it, absolutely ban phones from schools, and social media is not good for kids. We know that now, and we've got to be sensible about it.
And what about this point about AI? Because you're taking it much broader, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I don't know that... Look, children should be getting supervised internet access. It should be supervised. And I think the one thing I would say as well is we've discussed the failures of government all night tonight, and I don't think that's likely to change in the next couple of years. So as parents, I think what we should actually be doing is taking way more responsibility and saying, I, as a parent, am going to design the way that my children interact with the internet in a way that is going to be good for them, because they will need to. I mean, AI is a powerful tool, and they need to learn how to use it, not least because when we're older, they'll be able to show us what to do on the internet. So we need to have our children be able to use the technology, but I think there's such a thing as age appropriateness, and internet access has to be supervised for children under a certain age. I think it's a no-brainer, really.
And this is where the Conservative Party is at now.
So I'm slightly conflicted about this one. I do see both sides of the argument, and I have seen Conservatives make good arguments on both sides here. I totally agree that social media and these things should not be in schools and that it is absolutely terrible for kids. However, when I do see the social media bans of young people in Australia and Spain and the way in which it looks like these governments are working in lockstep with some sort of trickle-down messaging going on, that is pretty concerning, especially when you consider that young people are moving further to the right. And it didn't seem to be a problem before that was happening. Social media has been around for a while now. And it does make you wonder, if it's left-wing indoctrination that's happening, which does happen, by the way, then do they keep that same energy? And then you look over and you see another developing story that the X headquarters in Paris just got raided.
French prosecutors have carried out a search in the offices of Elon Musk's X in Paris. Officials say it's part of an investigation into the social media platform. French authorities also confirmed today that they've asked Elon Musk to appear in Paris and to answer questions as part of this case.
So I think that we have to be very cautious when it comes to government crackdowns on social media platforms, especially when they're only happening to the platforms where the right-wing voices are thriving, like X. I mean, I really don't see them having the same concerns for Instagram, which is basically a glorified corn site at the moment. And they definitely don't care about OF or the actual corn sites. They just, I guess they're fine. So anyways, guys, enough ranting from me today. If you enjoyed that, don't forget to like that video right below. Hit the subscriber button, road to 1 million. And if you would like to watch another one, right here. Next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, armed and dangerous.